everyone. It's Campbell here from Dynamic Intention, in case you hadn't noticed which channel you're on. And excuse me, coming to you today to talk about three very large subjects: money, sex, and power. Now, there are three subjects that people get really quite freaked out about. There are three subjects that are actually intrinsic to all sorts of things. And just to kind of explain a little, I have been over the past week or two, I know a lot of people have found that there's been quite a lot of really deep stuff coming up for them over the past couple of weeks for clearing. And I, like everyone else, has been experiencing this. I've got a little bit of a story to tell about some stuff that I discovered that actually has intimately related to these three subjects: the money, the sex, the power. People always kind of like, you see people shying away from these subjects in the spiritual community, and yeah, because they're scared to look at what's going on with everything. Who's that? Hello, I can see people watching. And in actual fact, if you're going to really step into your power fully, then it's necessary to actually look at all subjects in your life and understand your dynamic with each subject properly. Now, I will say right now, I've been understanding some dynamics for myself over the past few days. Hey, Alice. Yeah, basically understanding how the sexual side of the dynamic can create all sorts of issues when we're not addressing stuff properly, as as we know, Alice. As we know, like the interlinking of the three actually. This is one of these funny things. At the moment, I'm trying to work out exactly how to explain this in a way that's not really long-winded. But yeah, going back to what you already know about, like all of the stuff I uncovered over the weekend to do with my relationship with my mother, and also with an old partner of mine from, I'm just trying to think. We were together from 2008 till 2000 and like very beginning of 2010, and then we split up. Okay, so my mother obviously isn't part of the. Well, actually, you know what? My mother is part of the whole sexual conversation, because my mum made a choice when I was 14 to become celibate. Okay, because she had had some bad experiences with men. Now, long story short, my mother basically was always someone who was seeking for answers outside of herself all the time. And that, I think, is the primary reason for the downfall of your average human being, you know, as far as I'm aware. It's one of these things, isn't it, that essentially, when we cut off from some part of ourselves and we're not looking at it, what happens is, there's always, when we decide to step away from something like this, in the case of sex, where we're not looking at our own shit, basically, and we go into denial of the shadow and all of the other things. Okay, and this is any fucking subject you can think of. If you get to a point where you're uncomfortable with a subject and there's fear, actually, that fear is showing you where you can grow. Now, if you decide to like completely step away and avoid and not engage with, what you're doing is you're denying your own growth. And when you step away from a subject like sex and decide you're not going to get involved in even delving into why it's such a fucking difficult thing for you, and you decide to actually then start putting all of your faith into an outside source, okay, which is exactly what my mum did. She decided to become celibate, and not too long afterwards she got involved with the Brahma Kumaris. Now, my understanding that's been coming through more and more and more is how much religions and spiritual organisations, particularly ones who advocate celibacy and basically in a very enforced manner, and they kind of they present like some kind of deity type figure as a figurehead, and they're asking you to give your power to this deity type figure that's up on some kind of a pedestal, whether it's a guru or whatever. In the case of the Brahma Kumaris, there's this fucking thing called Shiv Baba that's not what they say it is. And it's asking for abeyance from all members. It's, it's effectively a cult, all dressed up in pretty clothing. What happens is people disempower themselves completely, and they're disempowering themselves precisely because they're not looking at their shadow, and they're looking for outside salvation from somebody else, basically, rather than actually being prepared to understand that anyone else outside of them can only ever be a guide to the inner, essentially. Now, this is, it's the same with money, it's the same with sex, it's the same with power. If you're giving power to someone else to be the person that empowers you, that fucking sorts your money out for you, blah blah, all of this stuff, what you're doing is you're denying your very ability to be a creator, to be the powerful creator that you are. Now, there's always factors involved in all of these subjects where, we're here on this planet to connect with each other and to have relationships and play roles and play games. Basically, it's it's the game of life. Understanding that your everything that you create always is a co-creation with other people around you, with the source energy that is actually within you, and and that you will come across steps along the way to help you get to where you want to go. If you're asking for help, there's always stuff being presented to you, but it's up to you to be discerning as to whether what you're being presented with is actually going to empower you, as in like it's going to help you empower yourself, or whether it's going to attempt to take your power from you in some way, and you're going to willingly give it over, and then kind of do this whole thing of wanting to be rescued. Okay, so understanding this, you can see how basically the money, sex, and power thing, because all of these subjects bring up fear in the spiritual community to some degree or other. There's usually something going on with that whereby the person who's feeling some kind of state of disempowerment, as it were, is around a subject and is feeling fear and all the rest of it, is only feeling that fear because there's an unaddressed shadow that they need to actually confront and look at. Because in actual fact, when you do that, you take back your power from this shadow that has been denied and in the background. And that power that you take back is then power that goes into you creating what you desire to experience. Okay, so shadow work's a very, very, very important part of the equation when it comes to really stepping into your power fully and powerfully creating. Hey, Bobby, how you doing? So essentially, okay, so with all of these subjects, these big subjects, money, sex, and power, it's about understanding that when you have fear around a subject, basically, it's just inviting you to look at it, to delve deeper into it. Sound la? Is it that you can you guys hear me properly? I'm just wondering, actually, there's a possibility that I might still be hooked up. Right. You guys can hear me. You can hear me properly. Now, I've done this before where I've actually had the volume, but not the volume off. I've had my earbuds or AirPods in. Cool. Okay. And it turned out that the Bluetooth thing downstairs was still connected to my phone, so it was sending to that. Oh right, you're scouts. All right, cool. Yeah, I was just like, I thought you were telling me that my sound was gone. Yeah, okay. So getting back to what I wanted to talk about, right? Okay, I've got a little bit of a story to tell you guys, because I think there's lessons in here about actually being discerning about where you give your power to, or what you give your power to, and where you give your power. Okay, cool, awesome. That's all I needed to know. Okay. So I could talk about the effect of cults and blah blah blah, all of this other stuff for 5 million fucking years. Yeah, I think people that are drawn to actually listening to stuff here on my channel and watching my videos kind of have already got like an understanding that they don't want to be fucking getting caught up in any kind of nonsense. Although I will say there's a couple of my old videos up there, I always notice there's sometimes quite disempowered, victimy kind of comments on them from people. Like I've had people asking me to fix their lives and send manifest money for them, and I'm like, what the fuck, take control of your creatorship and your like take ownership of what you're creating for yourself. I had someone bugging me about taxis that their husband had lost at one point, and I was just like, oh god. This is a prime example of what I'm talking about. When you turn around and going, I can't do it for myself, I need someone else to do it for me. My role as an alchemist is to actually fucking take people by the hand and sometimes kick them up the arse to actually, the energy work I do is super, super powerful. But, I will always hand back to you that you are the one that always has the fucking answers to stuff. And it's my job to help you to see your blind spots. And it's my job to just encourage you to actually see how powerful you are by mirroring that to you, not by asking you to worship me or any of this other stuff. Now, there's a lot of spiritual organizations on the planet that require for you to give your power to some fucking guru figure or whatever, basically, including the organization that my mother is involved with. And people do this sometimes out of a state of desperation or whatever it is, and then wonder why their lives go to shit afterwards a lot of the time, because actually what they're doing is they're giving their power to this person, thing, whatever it is. Oh, Alice, I lost that. Hang on a sec. No. Fixing them like a boat and release them to water. Yeah, well, it's that thing of like, I'd say my gift, one of my gifts, is a bit the ability to see how people have got themselves into this mess. But I won't always give people the answers, because I prefer to bring people into a state where they can see and understand for themselves exactly how they've created what they've been experiencing so far, and actually help them to bring themselves into a state where they can then move forwards and create the things that they want to create, and I get really fucking good results. I was actually just having a chat with George, one of my beaters from the Science of Creating Miracles, yesterday, and he was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was the day before, actually. Had a quick chat with him, just a bit of a catch up to see how he was and to let him know about the Passion Portal as well, because I knew that he was interested in the new DNA activation, and I'd actually put it in there for members. By the way, if you want to read about the Passion Portal, there's details below this video. There's a link you can click on. There's some rather nice membership perks as well for people who are members. So go have a read. But anyhow, so I was talking to him, and he was saying that he's literally, since he worked with me, he's gone from being completely fucking stuck to he's watching his vision that he created whilst we were working together unfolding before his eyes. And he's had the realization as well that sometimes in order to bring the next bit forwards, he has to release something that's no longer serving him. So as he's been letting go of old things, like the new stuff starts coming into view, which is brilliant to hear. But he's really feeling like completely in charge of his own life now, which is great. This is the whole point of all of this. Now, I'm going to tell you, so he's in a state of empowerment. I'm going to tell you a little story about how I managed to unwittingly, I'm going to say unwittingly, disempower myself. Okay, this is in regards to my mum. So my mum, obviously, all of this stuff when I was younger. I think she was about 14 when I joined the Brahma Kumaris, and I was always like, there was something about the whole organisation that I was not comfortable with, and I could never put my finger on exactly what it was when I was younger. I now fully understand exactly what it was that made me uncomfortable about them, and that is that, essentially, the thing that they are claiming is this fucking Bubba character that my mum says she works with, and he rides on his chariot, and she has to ask permission before she does anything. That's the fucking clue, right? If you're being told by something outside of yourself, you have to ask permission to do this, that, or the other, to do with yourself. That is not source. That is a thing that is feeding off you and basically negating your free will, and you're allowing it to. Okay, so it was when all this came to light last year, I pointed out the fact that she's involved with the cult, she's been brainwashed, and this thing's feeding off her. She didn't appreciate that very much. We ended up having a bit of an argument. She put the phone down on me. Now I found more recently, okay, when I was younger, I'm still trying to work out exactly what the time frame is. She has been going in an out of body state, and I was given all of the background information to this has been coming through over the past like 24 hours or so, as I've been unraveling all the shit that was there in the background. Okay, so this cult that she's involved with is basically using black magic. I know it's a big accusation, but I know this because she had actually tapped in to me using this same sort of, I'm going to say, very cloaked free will denying techniques. I'm not entirely sure how she did it, but I was given all the information about like the aspect of her, the shadow aspect of her that was doing it. The shadow aspect of her actually was a Jesuit priest from however many lifetimes ago. I was given a very, very clear picture, and I knew it was my mum in another lifetime, and I was told this was the aspect of her that she's been in complete like denial of, that's actually been doing this. Now I've closed myself off from any kind of further interference on this front. It's been a real eye-opener for me though, because basically what she had done was put an input socket into me, and she'd like basically run a cloaked line, and she was draining me of energy. Not consistently and all the time, but I've been noticing recently that I was really, really hungry a lot of the time for no apparent reason. And my sleep patterns got a bit screwed up. And then I was finding that there was some misfiring going on creation for me, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Now, Alice actually is the one that pointed this out to me, because she was dealing with some stuff of the same sort, and her higher self said to me, you've got to tell Liz about this, because there's something in this for her. And she sent me a text on Facebook Messenger the other day to say, basically, I've just done all this. She'd basically been dealing with something similar, and she told me what she'd been dealing with. And then she said, right, you know, my higher self was telling me when I was doing all this work that I needed to tell you about this. No, there's not parasites. No, this isn't parasites or candida. This is literally, this is my mother operating out of body and coming in and doing this stuff. Basically, she did it back when I was 25. She put this in, and you know, it's funny actually. I've had like the most interesting time with her for quite a long time, but it really came to the fore recently, because you know, we fell out big style last year, and like she's been tapping me for energy. Now, what was interesting was unraveling all of this stuff and removing all the fucking various different devices that had been put in various different places and cloaked, basically. And you know, doing all of the work around this. Now, the gift, there's always a gift in every situation. The gift in all of this was actually me kind of getting really, really stuck into understanding exactly how much interference can go on with people from other people. Sometimes the other people that are interfering with them are doing it completely fucking unconsciously. Now, the other the other bit of this was there was other interference going on from an ex-boyfriend of mine of 10 years ago, just about, yeah, roughly 10 years ago. And I've just completely finished unraveling all the shit from him. Now, all of this stuff from him, he was completely unaware of, like everything completely unconscious. Now, it came as no surprise to me when I'd kind of delved down into what was behind these two energy drains, um, it came as no surprise to me when I was given his name, because I already knew that he was my dad in my last lifetime, and we had an interesting time of it. Without going into massive amounts of details, he was my dad in my last lifetime. He abused me in my last lifetime. He ended up killing me in my last lifetime, and we had a really, like, I'd say, a really interesting rocky karmic relationship in this lifetime when we were together. So I was just like, and the funny thing is, this guy on the surface of things is the loveliest person, but he is very, very chaotic at heart, and this is actually reflected in the way that his life works now. If you knew him, you'd know exactly what I was talking about. So I've been unraveling all this stuff. Now, one of the things that was made very, very clear with all of this was that, our choice of sexual partners does, it is quite an important thing from the point of view of, without approaching it fearfully. It's being discerning about who you have sex with, because you need to understand that when you have sex with someone, you are blending energies with them, and you are, there's a giving and receiving thing that goes on that can actually have a lot more attached to it that you're not even aware of. Okay. But at the same time, if the more conscious you get, the less likely you are to make crappy choices about who you sleep with, about, all of these sorts of interactions. Okay. Now, the side effect of all of this stuff, when you've got power drains going on and all the rest of it, there's usually a reason why the beings that are attached to all of this, and it's people's shadow aspects, and sometimes there's other stuff. The stuff with my mum, basically, this archonic thing that's to do with the Brahma Kumaris. Now, it's very much, a lot of, you might have noticed, a lot of these religious and spiritual organizations. I had someone saying this to me the other day. They were saying they actually, I was just like, that's, clever girl, this person who messaged me, and comes from a very religious background, and is actually looking to try and break free from it and from all the programming that she's received completely. And she said, I've noticed with religions that it's always the ones running it that have all the money, and everyone else doesn't have any, and they live in poverty and this kind of victimhood. And I was just like, yeah, well, that's pretty much how it's organized. I actually channeled a piece on this, which I can't read out to you right now. I don't think, oh, maybe I could find it on Facebook. I channeled this from my higher consciousness the other day. I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, I wrote this down, and then like went back to sleep again. It was just just really spot on little piece of information. Where is it? If I can find it. A loosh farm for the Archons. Yeah, but they absolutely feed off emotional fucking discord and stuff. This is exactly what, okay, this is what I'm going to talk to you guys about in a second when I can find what I wrote down. Oh, I sent it in a Facebook message to someone. All the people I talk to on Facebook, they're in private messages. I end up oh, where is it? Where is it? I always end up having really long conversations, and then when I'm trying to find the bit where I like quoted something at someone. Oh, it's basically. Oh, I sent one to you. Right. Okay, Alice, copy it and send it back to me on Facebook? So because again, I've had lots of long conversations. I think you, Caroline, and Antonina, I've spoken to all of you about this. Where the fuck is it? Oh, this is going through these messages. It's like, I want to quote it word for word, because it literally came through from my higher self, and I was just like, yeah. And it was funny. I just wrote it down on my phone on the notes and went back to sleep. Hmm. Fuck's sake. Where did I put it? I don't think I've put it up on my Facebook business page. I might have done. I don't think I did. It's basically what came through was that basically natural human desire and instinct, the suppression of natural human desires and instincts basically creates internal conflict, which is tasty food for entities and other beings and all spiritual and religious organizations. Right, okay, here we go. The suppression of natural human desire and instinct in order to fulfill some spiritual ideal presents ongoing internal conflict, which is tasty food for entities and beings that feed on this. The religious and spiritual communities of this planet are largely feeding grounds for such energetic parasites and were created with this purpose in mind. When you choose to join a religion or a spiritual organization, inverted commas, it's like being a cow deciding which shed to be tied up in and milked from rather than making a break for and choosing freedom and the rolling hills that you can see right in front of you, basically. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. And you look at, if you delve back into the Akashic records, you go back. This is something I did ages ago. This is something I've known about for a really long time, and I haven't talked about this, but I think it's worth emphasizing that all of the religions on this planet that have ever existed, okay, and bear in mind the fact that Yeshua never wanted to start a religion. His whole fucking thing was coming here to show us what we're capable of. That was it. That was it. It was just like, all this that I can do, you can do also. It's just you lot are too fucking thick to see it, basically, with not so many words, And it's funny actually because I have had conversations with him. He was guiding me for a really long time. I'm kind of self-guided now. We kind of stepped back and went, you don't need us to be giving you any kind of guidance. We're here to kind of witness what you do, and that's it. But he turned around to me. He did literally turn around to me. He was like one of the first beings that I channeled, and he said I never wanted to start a religion because I was just like, why are you coming through me? I wasn't, I'm not a Christian. I wasn't baptized. None of that stuff. I wasn't indoctrinated into any religion when I was younger. And he said, when I said I'm not Christian, he said, well, neither am I. I was just fucking laughing. It was just like, yeah, officially I was Jewish when I was alive. So, but he said, it's all, he didn't say it's all bollocks, but there's one thing you will notice actually when you genuinely speak to like genuine, and there's a lot of astral glamours around. So it is discernment again with that archangels, etc. When you actually connect with the genuine ones, they've got a fucking wicked sense of humor. They don't attempt to boss you around or any of that sort of shit, and they're actually not that interested. They're not interested in taking power from you at all. They're not really interested in doing things on your behalf either. They're more interested in getting you to see how powerful you are, which is, exactly why I do what I do. It really drives me fucking nuts when I see, people giving their power away to gurus and doing this whole thing of I need a guru to show me, blah, blah, blah. And rather than going, what I need to do is work with someone who's going to help me connect into myself more powerfully. This is all the work that I do is about clearing out what's out of the way and then helping you to actually fucking tap into what your vision is and helping you to basically using my tools and my skills, because I'm really fucking good at this, helping you to connect with that and develop your own tools and skills if you so want to. Not everyone wants to. Not everyone wants to learn how to work with energy for themselves. Some people are more focused on some other aspect of human life, and that's fucking fine and dandy as far as I'm concerned. But I said to someone the other day, I'll never teach anyone any of my modalities. I don't believe in teaching modalities and giving certifications. I'm more here to help you bring out your own stuff if that's the road you want to go down. But Essentially, like understanding that money, sex, and power, people always think of them as bad subjects, but in actual fact, if you're not owning your ability to create money, if you're not owning your power as a sexual being, if you're not owning your power as a sexual being, you're actually not owning your power, full stop, on this planet. And this is why most of the religions advocate abstemiousness, and they basically down down cry masturbation and so on and so forth. They want to cut you off from your sexual energy because essentially that gives them greater power to boss you around and tell you what the fuck to do. Okay, and it also bringing in shame about sex and all these things that are perfectly natural, and then everything gets twisted as well. You look at what's gone on with the Catholic Church and all the child abuse and all that stuff. It's like it's what you call not manipulating but twisting, like the natural power, natural personal power, when it's not acknowledged, and when it's suppressed and it has a lid put on it. What happens is it becomes twisted, it becomes devious. It's sort of, look at the Catholic Church, look at all the shit that's been going on, that's been coming out in the open about the Catholic Church and everything that goes on. I could talk about this for a very long time. I've had some out of body trips where I've actually ended up underneath the Vatican, and there's some very, very gnarly shit going on down there. um I feel like, I've done quite a lot of out of body investigation of various different things that, just from the point of view of like developing an understanding of exactly how fucking things can get, because knowing it's that whole thing of knowing what we're up against. At the same time, acknowledging the fact that when we do this, when we play this whole game of them and us, what we're doing is we are denying the fact that we are in fact everything, and we're capable of everything, and we have aspects of our beings, other lifetimes, parallel aspects, and so on and so forth. That still the shit that we judge other people for. So, like, the most important thing is to actually step back from an attitude of judgment and go into instead what I would call an attitude of discernment, and just understanding that it's up to you to always choose. I'm going to say the highest path for yourself, the one that feels the most joyful, the one that's not going to fucking screw other people's lives up. Choosing to create from your own power rather than attempting to use black magic, which is basically riding roughshod over the free will of others. Essentially, very, very important point. Yeah, understanding that it's not necessary to use black magic for anything, because actually you are that powerful that you can create for yourself. Understanding that if you're having issues with creation, it could be, because I've noticed recently, I was just like, hang on a moment, there's something going on. And I was realizing that I'm going to call it misfired creation, as in like stuff happening, but not quite in the way that, and not to sound like a control freak or anything, but stuff happening, but not quite in the way that I'd kind of chosen or decided, and realizing that there was a reason why this was going on. There's always a fucking reason, and when you turn it around and go, oh well, God just didn't want it for me this way, and da 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 da. Again, you come back to this thing of seeing yourself as separate from God. You're not. God is part of you. God's in here. You don't need to go out and up to go to God. God's in here. Okay. But understanding with all of this, and a lot of people have the understanding that God's in here as a sort of conceptual thing, but don't experience it because there's other stuff that's holding them apart from themselves they can't even see. My understanding with all the stuff I've just removed from myself is how much this happens. Okay. Because I've just pulled a load of shit out of myself, various different fucking devices, things like external hard drives, fucking, like, there was a USB port with stuff plugged into it, fucking transmitters, receivers, all sorts of shit. Developed some understanding of what all these different things do. Done all the cleanup on all of this. At the same time, kind of going, and a lot of this stuff, when people are carrying it, can be cloaked, and they can be doing all of the other work and then go, why isn't what I'm working on creating, why isn't it coming together? And there's lots of different ways of approaching things, but essentially, if you start with the energy and you unpick from there, you're always going to be a lot more successful than if you just try the physical forceful route with trying to make things work. We understand this. I think most people who've ever watched an Abraham Hicks video or whatever, or listened to an Abraham Hicks audio, understand that, basically it's about understanding that the energy leads with stuff, even though, again, I think with Abraham Hicks, there's all of this stuff, all of this new cage stuff that comes out. There's an awful lot of, I'm not going to say bypassing, but it's like missing information. And I was actually saying about this on my profile today. It's just like understanding that successful creation is about aspiration, as in focusing on the vision of what you want to create, and also deconstruction of everything that is not congruent with that in your life. So this is about releasing things that don't serve you. And some of the things that you have that don't serve you are things that you might not see. Things like nanotechnology, things like artificial intelligence programs, things like black magic, so on and so forth. There's an awful lot of people basically being taught to manifest using black magic because, in actual fact, I can remember buying onto a manifestation course that didn't actually fucking make a point of turning around and saying, when you're looking at manifesting a relationship, you have to leave the person's name out of it. Otherwise, you're fucking violating someone else's free will. Basically, you can't look at it and go, I'm having a relationship with such and such. But, if you just leave it at that, what you're doing is you're saying, my choice is more important than theirs. My free will matters, theirs doesn't. That's black magic. That's first string magic. If you're trying to energetically force something into being, basically, that involves a specific person without their conscious consent. That's violating free will. And that, the definition of black magic is violating another person's free will. Whether it's a manifestation technique or whatever, in actual fact. But anyhow, and there's all sorts of things. I mean, we could talk about this for fucking hours and hours and hours, but understanding, I think the basic premise is understanding that there is nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be filthy rich. In fact, there's nothing wrong for wanting to be recognized for the gifts and attributes you bring to the table on this planet, and nothing wrong with wanting to receive lots and lots of money just for the fact you exist and the fact that you are fully expressing yourself, basically. And in actual fact, if more spiritually minded people could get to grips with being wealthy, just think of the change we can create on this planet. But sitting around going, I'm abundant, and tapping your face isn't likely to do a huge amount if you're not prepared to actually dig deep enough into why you might not be actually creating the thing that you desire right now, as well as kind of looking at how you want to create the thing you desire. When people say let go of the house, it's just like, well, it's what's the legacy you want to leave in the world? What is the big vision that you want to create? And I've talked about this before with the Science of Creating Miracles, not the cartoony video I did, but the other one. Basically, but essentially, with all of this stuff, it's so important to understand that when you have an organization trying to tell you that it's wrong to want to be rich, it's wrong to have sex, and that power is a bad thing. No, personal power, there's a massive difference between power and force. What you see displayed most of the time on this planet by the politicians, etc., particularly, and arms companies and all the rest of it, is force. That's not power. That is based on, this is power based on the idea of harming someone else in order to get what you want. Okay. Now, true power, when you're fully in possession of your energy field and of your power, creation is easy. You don't need to resort to those other tactics. Okay. It's not necessary. And, you know, the way I see it is that people who are aware of themselves as spiritual beings. Now, in actual fact, there's nothing in this life that's not spiritual. Everything is spiritual because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. You know, everything is energy, therefore everything is spiritual. But you know, it's whether whether you're aware of yourself as a spiritual being or not. This is the thing. Now, very often what happens is when people become aware of themselves being a spiritual being, they then go into like what I would call the land of total shitfucks when it comes to money, when it comes to sex, and when it comes to personal power. Suddenly, everything falls off a fucking cliff, you know. And it could be sometimes that you end up becoming more spiritually aware because that stuff falls off a cliff first, and then you start going to look for answers as to why it happened. Now, this has been the experience of someone that I'm currently working with in one of my group programs at the moment, which is quite interesting. And I did turn around to them and say, did you ever think to yourself, if you hadn't basically been in the crash of 2008 and lost so much money, that you wouldn't have actually gone looking at like the reasons why that might have happened, and you wouldn't have ended up discovering energy work, and then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Maybe like the bigger plan all the way along, that what your soul really wanted to experience was for you to come to this planet and actually make wealth in a conscious way rather than an unconscious way. And he was just like, yeah, you're right. You know, so there is always a reason for everything, always a reason, you know. And sometimes it is that people experience the kind of what you call the long dark night of the soul before the, you know, before the opening up of more consciousness, and you know, through going to look to see kind of what lies underneath everything. So there is always a gift, you know, I will say this. I'm going to look at my notes now because I made some notes for this today. I don't very often do that. What I wanted to mention to all of you is that if you go, and there's a there's a link underneath this video. I'm doing things a little bit differently. There's a link underneath this video to my digital shop. Now, if you go to the digital shop, you can avail yourself for free of the Empowerment Catalyst, which I recorded today and I have put up on my website in the digital shop at $0 basically. So you can go and download that for free. You just add it to the cart and then go through the process. And as far as I'm aware, it all should work okay. I've checked with my webmaster, who's also my partner, and I said, if I did this, would it work? And he was just like, yeah, as far as I'm aware. So if it doesn't work, do send me an email and say, Liz, I tried to get the free catalyst and there's an issue. There shouldn't be any issues with that. The other thing I wanted to mention is the fact that I've got some new packs up in the digital shop, including a brand new DNA activation and restoration, which removes all the seals, implants, tags, etc. It's called Truth, and it's a 12 to 48 strand DNA activation. So what happens is that if you've never had your DNA activated before, the first time it will take all the seals and everything off, and it will activate you to 12 strands. And then once that's bedded in, which might take a week or so, you muscle test yourself as to when you run it again. And then it'll probably take you up to 24 the next time. It might take you all the way to 48, depending. Basically, the way it's designed is that it will take you to what you can handle the next time out of the 48 strands. So if you're not going to handle going all the way up to 48 straight away, it's not going to take you all the way up to 48 straight away. And it might well be that you get incremental 12 strands each time, basically. And you keep running it every few days or weeks, however works for you. And again, muscle test, basically, until you're at 48, at which point it's not going to take you to any more strands. Okay. And there's also a protocol in that pack for physical implant of ET origin. Removal. Doesn't put them in, it removes them. Okay, so that's up in there. I've put together a pack with the DNA activation and reboot 10, which has just been upgraded again, and I've called it the Reboot to Truth pack. So that's on there, and it's cheaper to buy that all in one if you don't have the reboot or a DNA activation, rather than buying them separately. So there's a little bit of a discount in there for buying them together. And the last thing I was going to say, what I have done for Passion Portal members, and there's a link for the Passion Portal underneath this, which I already mentioned. All Passion Portal members, once you sign up for the Passion Portal, you get the DNA activation included as part of your membership. So that's automatic. I put that up in the Passion Portal for members yesterday. So it's a way of saving yourself quite a lot of money and getting hold of that. And I've also introduced member perks to the Passion Portal. So for those of you who are already members, and for those of you considering becoming members, what I've wanted to do is basically honor your commitment to helping me grow the network, basically, by offering, and I don't do this outside of the Passion Portal, offering one-to-one sessions rather than like intensive like packages. And also there's a discount of up to 10% for any members on any of my other stuff that I do, because for me, what I want to see is the people who want to join me for their part of their, for part or the whole of whatever the fuck, however it works for you. Basically, your journey into discovering yourself, because that's what the work with me is all about. It's about discovering yourself, and it's about discovering your own success whilst using the tools and stuff that I provide, basically. And doing what everyone does in group courses I run, people ask me if it's all right to do this, that, and the other, and I always just bounce it back to people and go, you have the answers, use the muscle testing. It's kind of funny, actually. It's just like, one thing I'm not up for is taking people's power away to know that they can fucking find out this stuff for themselves. And it's like, but sometimes it's nice to have I'm going to say, a helpful guide or playmate. Actually, that's the word I prefer. Someone to play with on the journey. It's always co-creative. All of these things are always a co-creative process, and I like to play with people. Basically, like a big fucking kid. So yeah, those links are below this video. Do go and have a read, and do go and avail yourself of the Empowerment Catalyst via my digital shop, but it is free, and have a look at the other stuff in there too. It might be something that grabs your attention. I was going to say, in the other DNA activation I did before, the No More DNA activation, the 12 strands, it's only 12 strands, is basically on offer for $99 at the moment. I'm taking it down on the 31st, basically, because it's being replaced with the Truth one. That's the upgrade, basically, and the Truth one is full price. It's $199. Having said all of that, these three subjects, money, sex, and power. I think there's something I'm going to be talking about a lot more on this channel, because I think it's fucking important to just get rid of the fucking stigma around them. There's a lot of this in the spiritual community, and it's nonsense. And I think, more and more people are waking up to this, and more people are waking up to the fact that, being a spiritual person, and everyone's a spiritual person, is fucking ridiculous, isn't about running away from any of the things that naturally make you human. Actually, being a fully rounded being is about embracing all of you, right? Without judgment, including doing the shadow work, embracing and loving the shadow, whilst also, when one embraces and loves the shadow, you step back from judgment, and then you transmute the bits that needs transmuting. You take the gifts, you integrate them. It's very, very, very powerful to do this work. And it's very, very powerful to do this work with the right people, whoever they might be. It might be me, or it might be someone else. You will always, if you check in with yourself, you'll always know who the right people are for you to work with for all of this stuff. But just don't ever fucking make the decision you're not going to face your shadow stuff, because that is where things get fucked up for anyone on this planet who's basically just living in this denial state about the fact that they have a dark side. Everyone does. You've got to love the light and the dark. As Nenad Nikolic says, bless him, he said, the whole game is polarity on this planet. And, you have to, in order to know your light fully, you have to understand and fully explore your darkness too. It's part of the deal. It is part of the deal, people. Anyhow, I'm gonna love and leave you all. Mwah.